Good morning. Had a nice day off yesterday. Got to spend it with my wife and kids, which is great. Back to work this morning. We ended up with just about 2 inches of rain from the rain on Saturday there. We may have gotten a little bit less at our farm in Berkey, which is 35 miles east of here, so we'll have to go down there and take a look around and see. I really don't want to go there to combine until we get done with at least the beans here at Waldron, but we'll do what we got to do, I guess. Phil worked on this truck on Saturday there. We got that done. He had to replace this air dryer here. Some of the lines and the wire harness was corroded, and the valves in there were no good. So we got that fixed. He was just doing a couple other things here, and we're going to get this truck out of here this morning. I'm going to bring the combine in, which is just behind those doors, go through a couple of things there, and yeah, hopefully it won't take too much to figure out what that squeak was on there, and we'll tear apart that refresher too and see if we can't get that fixed. So it is a really nice day out today. It's cold, but the sun is shining, so definitely not going to be in the fields today. It's way too wet for that. Hopefully we'll be able to do something this week at some point. I don't know when exactly. It is supposed to rain towards the end of the week, so we'll have to kind of keep an eye on the weather and the ground conditions. It'd be nice if we could have a really big day combine and beans tomorrow. We could be done up here, but I just don't think the ground's going to be dry enough. Okay, so I decided while I'm waiting for Phil to get that truck out of the shop this morning, I'm going to work down in my seed barn here, and since it is such a nice day, I want to get my seed treater out and clean it up a little bit. I went through it last week and winterized it that one day. Just kind of made sure there wasn't anything in the lines that would freeze and break anything, but if I get a chance, I always like to power wash and really just thoroughly rinse some of the lines and the atomizer and some of that stuff. So I'll show you as we go through it a little bit here, but I'm going to rinse stuff out and flush it off here, and then I might take it back down to the farm where we got our power washer and give it a little bit better cleaning so that it's ready to go when we're ready to treat beans in the spring. So this is the atomizer. This piece here spins, and the seed kind of falls around it, gets coated with the treatment. You can see how dusty that is in there. Wheat is really bad at getting dusty. I clean this out every couple of days when I'm running, or well, even more often than that, about every time I start. But this is why I'm going to give it a nice, good, thorough cleaning here before I put it away for the winter. We don't want that sitting in there when we get ready to do beans in the spring. So one of the nice things about this seed treater is that it's very portable. I have it in the back of the bed of my truck right now, but this view is a little weird. Okay, seed treater is all cleaned up. Got all the hoses emptied, blew air through them so that there's no water or chemical left in any of that stuff. I did the best I could cleaning up these tanks, but that red dye is pretty strong stuff. So fuel truck's here. So that fuel truck, they're bringing us, I think, 7,500 gallons. That's the nice thing about a big tank out there, is that we can take transport loads of fuel, get a little bit better price on it that way. This morning Dad is going to put this grate in. I think I showed this to you a few videos ago, but on our field that we were tiling up there, they put in a catch basin, I guess you want to call it, whatever it is. But it's basically a 30 or 36 inch tile that sticks straight up out of the ground that we then ran other ones into. It's right along the road, so we want to put that grate on top to make sure that nothing big gets in there, nobody falls in it or whatever, nobody drives over it, that kind of stuff. So he's going to go get that installed this morning. I've got my seed treater cleaned, loaded back up in my truck. I am waiting for this pit to get empty. I'll show you this in just a second. But I'm going to take that back down to the seed warehouse, and then I'll be done with that, and I can get the combine in the shop. So this concrete pad here, this is where we load our sprayer. Our water and fertilizer tanks are here, pump down in there and stuff, and that's this is where we load the sprayer. So we poured this pad here a number of years ago, so that if we ever had a spill or something leaked while the sprayer was sitting here, it would be contained. So it has a pit down in the center of it. The problem is it fills up with water when it rains, and since it rained this weekend, it's full of water. It's nothing wrong with it. It's clean water, just rainwater. There's no chemical in it. So Every time it rains, we have to pump it out, and that way if we do have a leak or something happens, we can contain it and we're not polluting the environment from a leak or something like that. So I just unloaded that seed treater and thought I'd plug my forklift in because the battery's getting a little bit low. Kept getting a fault code. Do you know what helps to make the charger work? If you plug it in. There. Now it's working. Let's get this out. Okay, combine's in the shop. It is lunchtime, so I'm gonna go eat lunch and then come back and work on that thing for a while. Okay, I am working on this combine, tracing down my squeak. I had somewhat of an idea where it was coming from, and I think I found it. It's a little difficult to get to, but I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So underneath the feeder house of the combine, this is the transmission front axle right in between the tires. Way up there are them gears that drive what we call the shoe augers. And those are on the inside. They sit underneath the rotor and push the grain back to the sieve and chafer. And if you look real close, the bearing right there, kind of in the center of the light, that locking collar right there is supposed to be on that bearing. And it's not. And what that does is keep the bearing from spinning on the shaft, so that the bearing is what is turning, and not the shaft inside the bearing. So I believe that's my problem. I'm gonna try and crawl up in there and see if I can't get that to seat back on there. There's a little set screw that holds it in place that must have come loose. So yeah. Fun part is, how do we get in there? I don't fit through there very well. I might have to take this shaft here out of the way. Okay, since I am not a contortionist, it was pretty hard for me to get up in there and fix that, and there was no way I was going to be able to hold a camera, but I did get that locking collar back on that bearing. I think it'll hold for the rest of harvest, but definitely something this winter after we're done, we're going to want to give it a little bit more attention, and probably have to go in and replace those bearings on that shaft. So in the winter we can take some more stuff off and make it a little bit bigger project and get in there a little bit easier. But right now I don't want to tear that far into it because we still have a lot of crops to harvest, and I don't want the combine to be down for a week. So the other thing that I need to look at is this rethresher over here. For whatever reason, this handle has broke. It's supposed to spin that shaft, and then the weld's broke. There's a plate kind of in here that's supposed to move in and out with that handle. I guess I'm gonna have to try and take that apart to see why it won't move and why it broke that handle off. But first, today is the day John Deere released their new 8R tractors. So we're gonna go take a look at that. Look at those. Okay, back to this rethresher. First thing I'm doing is pulling this pin out. That's part of the hinge. Hoping that maybe I can pull this apart from there. Yeah. Alright, so that lets me see down in there and what we got. I think if I take out those 3 more bolts kind of right here, I think you can see those, yeah. That whole piece may come out of there, so try that. Alright, I got that cover off on that rethresher. I really didn't see anything in there that would cause that to not move. Other than these seals have gotten some dirt and stuff kind of trapped in there, but we'll pick it up, clean it up. So that plate should be cleaned up and ready to go. Sorry, I got something in my eye. But this piece here, this is the handle that you use to adjust it. And right there is a broken weld. So this handle, if I can do it, kind of spins separate from the shaft. I'm going to try and weld that up. Now, fair warning, I'm a farmer. I'm not a professional welder. I've never taken a welding class in my life. I've learned to do everything by myself. So it won't look pretty, but it will hold. When the welds aren't pretty, that's what they make grinders for. Shot of green spray paint, that's better than new. Let's see, John Deere green. That'll do. That'll work. And no, I'm not gonna let you look at it any closer than that. Time for my afternoon pick-me-up. Okay, this handle is done, painted. I don't know if it's dry yet or not, but we're gonna start putting stuff together. So first thing we've got to do is put that plate back up in there. When you guys are working on equipment, do you play this game like I do, where you drop something, in this case a nut, and you hear it hit the ground, you're pretty sure you know where it went, you're probably staring right at it, but you just can't find it? I like to play this game. Well, apparently, from the time I dropped that nut and it hit the floor, and the 5 seconds it took me to get down and look for it, somebody stole it. What a jerk. Good thing I got some extras in the drawer. Okay, I've got this all back together, sort of loose in there. I didn't tighten any of the bolts up yet. When I was putting it back together the first time, I put that plate in there, and it was still catching. When I would open, it wouldn't move, and so I took it back apart, and I realized that on the bottom, kind of up under here, these 4 bolts, right there, there's a wear plate on the inside there, and that wear plate had got an edge on the top of it, and when you moved that other plate that I had taken out earlier, this one, out, it would catch on the edge, and that's why it was getting stuck and it wouldn't move, and then I pulled on it too hard, and that's why the handle broke. So I took that out, flattened it some, ground the edge down, and rounded it over so that it wouldn't have a sharp spot for it to catch on there. And now, when I need to move this handle, it works. Which I know you can't see, but so that's where it goes for corn. Maybe I can show you here. If you look, when I move it, if I can move it, you can see how it kind of pushes that in, changes the clearance in there. So that's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. I'm going to tighten the bolts up, and then we're good to go in the combine. I may walk around and just check a few other things while it's in the shop here. A lot of these belts, I think you can see there, those have those springs with those big long rod bolts on there. Those are belt tensioners, gauges. So I'm going to just kind of run around the machine and check to make sure they're all within the specified range. Since I got it in the shop, they're easy to change now. If something's out of adjustment, I'll adjust it. And then wait for it to dry up so we can finish combining beans. So I opened the chopper area up on the combine just to take a look in here. This is the kind of the cleaning shoe, the part of the combine that separates the grain from the chaff and husks and soybean pods and the rest of the stuff. These little fingers here are all adjustable. You can adjust how much space there is in between them, and that allows the grain to fall down through it. There's another one underneath it up there. You can kind of see it. And so anything that falls down between both of them is what ends up in the grain tank. There's a fan up front, kind of way up in there, that blows air up through these fingers, and it helps keep the light stuff floating and running right out through the back of the machine. So you can see those augers up there. Remember that bearing that we had to fix this morning, the locking collar, that actually runs those augers, and they basically push all the grain coming out of the front of the combine towards the back so it can fall into these into this cleaning shoe. Up there, that is the discharge beater. Everything that comes out of the rotor on this combine, which is what does the actual threshing, comes out through the back on that discharge beater, and it kind of gets thrown through this opening and then back into there. That is the chopper. That thing spins around really fast and basically throws everything out through the back. So That's a little bit of how combine works. Sometime one of these days when I'm out in the field and I've got a minute, I'll kind of walk through it a little bit better, show you exactly how this combine works and how it separates the grain from the trash. So one of the other things I wanted to check was the tightness on this big long chain here. That chain is what drives the unloading system, the unloading auger and the augers in the grain tank. Basically, you just check this gauge right here, make sure that that washer is kind of within that notch on the end of that little gauge. Actually looks pretty good. That chain gets a lot of wear on it through a typical season. We actually usually replace it every year and have to tighten it at least once, if not twice, throughout the season. So this year we don't have as many acres to combine. We'll see, maybe we'll run it another year. We'll check it out again at the end of the year. Okay, next thing I want to do today, Dad got back from Berkey and he brought me some corn ears back from some of our stuff down there. So I'm going to take them out and test the moisture, just see where we're at. So you remember a couple of weeks ago I tested some corn? I think it was video number 4 maybe. This is the same variety that I tested then. It was 31% when I tested it the first time. We'll see what it says here. 30.8. I think we dried maybe a half a point in 2 weeks. That's going to be a fun wet fall. So apparently somewhere in Ohio, northwest Ohio, it's dry enough to shell corn today because my sales rep had a plot she did this morning and there were too high a moisture for her moisture tester, so she brought them up here. We've got a pretty nice one. I'm going to run them all through. You can see all the samples here. So far they've all been 26 to 33%, so there's still plenty wet, but maybe the earlier stuff will be drier. She won't let me put her on the camera. It's a real bummer. Someday I'll get her, don't worry. Okay, I got those samples all tested for Megan, and she's got what information she needs. I talked to Phil for a little bit while I was out there. He's transferring dry beans out of our GSI top dry bin into the other bin that we're storing beans into. He was having a little bit of trouble with the sumps plugging up from the pods and stuff, so I asked him if he wanted some help. He said no. I said okay. So I'm gonna go home. It is just after 6 o'clock now, and yeah, got the combine ready to go for tomorrow, so that is good. Well, maybe tomorrow, we'll see. I don't know that we'll be able to do anything. May try and shell some corn if the ground conditions aren't too bad. We do have a field right out behind the farm here that's some higher ground, it's drier, so we might be able to go there. I do know we have a meeting with our crop consultant tomorrow morning to go over some fertilizer recommendations, so we're gonna do that. This will be the end of the video, so hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you got any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.